So my guest on this show is Ron Nash, the author of the soon-to-be-released How to LinkedIn, which will be out in mid-February 2016. Ron is a career coach, LinkedIn strategist, one of the best people I know to talk with about LinkedIn, and he's been a periodic guest on Job Search Radio over the years. Ron, great to see you. Welcome to Job Search Radio. Great to have you back.
Thanks so much for thinking about me, and I'm glad it worked out so that your busy schedule could get me in.
You have no idea how busy it is this month. So, Ron, branding, LinkedIn. LinkedIn is such a great tool. We all know that, and people misuse it or underuse it dramatically. When people start thinking of branding themselves and using LinkedIn as a tool, where should they start off?
Well, and Jeff, you raise a very good question. It's one of the things that my book is starting to address, the new book. So I recommend they start off, obviously, with their summary. So the behavior that I've seen on LinkedIn over the last many years is people start off, they'll get a profile, populate it with basic information, and then start reaching out, in essence, start spamming others. There's a lot of spamming going on as well. But I like to think of it like this. I want it to slow the game down a little bit. It's like everybody's in a hurry to try to connect and meet each other. And I wanted to slow it down a little bit. And I wanted to liken it to the idea that LinkedIn is really a social network with about 400 million people now. And the etiquette of introducing oneself to another is still the same as it would be in a networking meeting. So in essence, if I were to go to a professional networking meeting for a job or to find investors, et cetera, I'd have a certain look on, right? So starting off with the LinkedIn photo, first thing that happens is when we go to a profile, above the fold on the computer, which is that part that you see on the computer screen, and anything below that's below the fold, first thing you see is actually the photo if a person has it. I highly recommend that you use a professional looking photo. If you're a job seeker, look like a job seeker who's going out on an interview. That's the part you want to look, because 24/7 you are live online and people are looking at you, making decisions about your presence. And then I take people on a journey through the professional headline, which is next to the photo, which it's populated automatically by your job title if you don't use anything else. Now, I prescribe a description where there's a way to format your professional headline to gain more attention and also to use keywords to help attract more lookers to your profile. Then after that, your summary. So for the most part, I slow it down and we start working on the visual aspect and the keyword aspects, and then the summary, the story you're telling about yourself, which is really the positioning of your brand.
So I'm going to start off with the photo here, and I see way too many ballroom gowns, tuxedos, or family shots, as though this is Facebook. I'm pretty sure that you don't want that.
I personally don't recommend it. Once again, it's interesting. I'm on Facebook and I do stuff with my family on Facebook, and I clearly keep LinkedIn. So what LinkedIn means to me, because it is a personal brand, and you're raising an interesting point, because I think social media is so new that from a behavior perspective, a lot of people that are on Facebook automatically populate LinkedIn with Facebook type behavior. It's a professional environment. So if I'm an HR person, 97% of all HR people use LinkedIn as a screening tool for job seekers. You know what we're looking for? We're looking to see how you look professionally, not how you look casually in your life. Don't get me wrong. I also want to see how you act that way. So I'm going to Google you. But on LinkedIn, you actually really want to look the part that you're selling. So in essence, you want to look like a job seeker online with a tie and a shirt and your smile on, professionally. Realistically, you want to look the part all the way down, because if I'm looking at you as a potential candidate for an opportunity before you come in, before I ever call you, I want to see what you look like as a professional. And so far too often, people are using photos where they're cropping someone's hand out, right? They're at a wedding.
Ridiculous.
It's interesting because I think what's happening right now is the game has changed, and people we're still catching up. I mean, we literally have gone from the 20th century to the 21st century, and the 21st century LinkedIn is a part of that. But the behaviors in terms of how we communicate our brand have now become more of our responsibility, and we really have to manage our brand now.
So I'm going to back up 1 second and ask you this. You may think of this as a softball question, but I just know how few people do branding. So it begs the question, why is branding of any value to a job hunter? And I have to say, let me back it up, to an employee, a salesperson, any individual on LinkedIn, anyone who's working. Why is branding of value?
I guess, and certainly a greght question, and softball, hardball. I think it's a great question. You know what brand simply really means is that when people experience you, what do they think of? What do they get from that experience of you? When they see you, what do they get from it? What do they take away? And so if part of my brand is me at a wedding or at some event with my hand around someone or holding a beer, et cetera, because I've seen HR people holding cold ones, et cetera, on their LinkedIn profiles. If that's equating the idea of HR manager or VP of HR and my brand with alcohol or at a bar, et cetera, it's inconsistent to the impression that should be given based on the persona I want people to have. So the brand simply is the idea of what do you want people to experience when they look at you and look at your LinkedIn profile. If you are a job seeker, if you are employed, if you're a VP, if you're leaving college, what is the professional image that you really want people to have? And so ultimately that is the essence of your brand, and it needs to be thought out and spelled out, and it needs to be polished to the best of your ability.
Now, you said that line underneath your name will be auto-populated by your most recent title if you don't use it. How should someone lay out that line? Do you have thoughts about that?
Yeah, so there in my book, I give a couple of recipes, and it's, I add using an opening adjective, inspirational coach, followed by a keyword, followed by the audience you serve, et cetera. So there's a few recipes that you can use, but ultimately, what you really want to do is you want to use that billboard space because it's billboard space, and you want to use words that denote your character. Some people use sentences, inspirational coach, coaching the masses. I mean, it's okay to use a sentence. What I recommend you do is you find some words that are appropriate for your brand. In my case, I'm certainly an inspirational coach. I do career coaching and life coaching and all the above, but inspirational is very important to me. Coach is a key word. So if people are looking for a coach, it's one of the key words. Proof of the work that I've done. I've been in the business for over 2 decades, and I touched thousands of people. So that statement literally allows me to display myself as an inspirational coach who's touched lots of people over 2 decades, and I have proven results for it. And I also use spacers between the words, which allows the brain to kind of see the information I'm giving so that it's not all compact and hard to read, but that it's spaced out, because the way that we perceive information, the brain actually kind of peruses information. Spacing with some kind of a line or an image between words allows us to see information faster and easier.
It's funny. I notice on your profile, you use a certain type of graphical star between particular phrases. And it does make it very easy to read and connect with who you are and what you do.
Yeah, and once again, it's for the same reason. I mean, so and some of the recipes, and interestingly enough, Jeff, is my title's changing. Lots of stuff has been going on since we last talked. I actually am revamping my profile, but my coaching certainly has gone global. So what I'm going to do now is just kind of revamp my brand, my profile, my background picture, everything in alignment with what I'm doing. Currently, there's a star, I believe, between words. You can use any symbol between words to create space. In this case, it was a star that I used. But these spacers between words, based on some of the current neurosciences, it allows us to perceive information faster. So I'm just kind of taking some of the local neurosciences, embedding it into simple tricks, going, make it easier for people to see. Because here's an important fact. You have about 5 to 10 seconds for a recruiter or a hiring manager to peruse your LinkedIn profile. They're not going to spend a lot of time reading. They're going to 5 to 10 seconds. So you got to stage it so that their brain gets enough information during that quick peruse.
Fabulous, Ron. And we're going to be back with more from Ron Nash in just a moment. But first, my job search insider tip for this show. And normally I don't stick on the same theme as my guest, but this time I am. And it's the notion of using LinkedIn effectively. Now, I get many, many connection requests from people, ostensibly because they want to network with me. You would think that, but if I try to network with them, invariably they go, whoa, whoa, as though it's only supposed to be a one-way street. That is, they want to network with me, but reciprocity is not part of their vocabulary. So I just want to remind you, number one, the other person that you network with has the right to reach to you, just like you have the right to reach to them. And number two, most people who reach to connect to me do nothing with the connection from the time I accept the connection request until, I don't know, I'm LinkedIn member 7563. I was there real early. And there are people I've never heard from again once I accept the connection request. And of the currently 15 or 16,000 first level connections that I have, I'm sure I've never heard from 14,500. There's no purpose in having numbers if you're not going to use them. Start working the LinkedIn system and build your brand. Let's come back to Ron and see some ways that we can keep building the brand. On to you. So we've gotten as far as the very top of the page. How do we progress from there?
So after your photo, your professional headline, we're then down into your summary. And your summary gives you the opportunity to tell your story. I mean, realistically, it's a 2,000 character space, which is quite a bit. You can actually tell a good story there. Unlike the 20th century approach to resumes, which a lot of people have populated their profiles with, which is really a 20th century strategy, LinkedIn has kind of softened the way we can communicate our brand. You can really tell a story about things you're passionate about, what you love as it relates to the work you do, which really humanizes you. And that's one of the things that I'm seeing with the LinkedIn profile or platform is that while it's not Facebook and the liberties certainly aren't as casual, it's still a professional environment, but it's a better platform or more casual platform than the 20th century resume, because the summary is a chance for you to tell your story in a way that attracts people. In essence, I've done lots of recruiting, Jeff, as you have over the many years. And I get drawn in. I mean, I saw a profile summary where the individual starts off by, I love, and she capitalized love because you can't bold or anything on LinkedIn, right? But she starts off by saying, I love, and then she goes on to describe what she does. And she tells a story about, here's what I'm good at, bullet point, bullet point, bullet point. And then here's what the assessments say about me, bullet point, bullet point, bullet point. And her profile, I got to tell you, it was amazing. As a matter of fact, it was so good that I was like, okay, I'm going to have to model this profile, because instantly as a talent scout myself, it was very easy to read. I also saw that she was passionate about what she did, which was tied into her everyday job. And she was a career services person on campus. And I got that she loved her work in no time flat. So now is the opportunity in the summary to stage whether you're an aspiring person, graduating, getting a certificate, getting a degree, just getting into the workforce, or in transition. It's a way to talk about how you feel about the work you do. And I think that's what the new summary or the ability to write a summary allows us to do.
I think that example that you gave, Ron, is spectacular. And I know we have to rework mine because I've covered a lot of territory in mine, and it's time to simplify it. So the notion that you can actually communicate with a reader and show how special you are and what you care about and what matters to you is a huge advantage over the traditional resume. In the resume model, we can't do that, even though in theory we could. We're all told, don't do this, keep it professional, keep it simple. No one really cares what you want. But on LinkedIn, it's different.
And you're absolutely right. Interestingly enough, is because of the way that LinkedIn has kind of gained market share. I mean, 77% of all jobs in America are now aggregated through LinkedIn. 77% of all jobs in America are aggregated through LinkedIn, which means that the traditional resume and resume writing, LinkedIn actually has a resume writing application that a lot of people don't know about, which converts your profile into a resume. I'll tell you, it's interesting. So traditional, the biggest thing that I've recognized and why I wrote the book and part of my mission is we've crossed over from the 20th century into the 21st century, and it's almost hard to fathom because if you are used to 20th century behaviors, writing an objective on top of your resume, writing the resume a certain way, not telling your story, if you're used to that format because it's been accepted for so long, then creating a new behavior is fairly foreign. And so that's where we're going with this. And it's a more effective behavior, it's more efficient.
In the 20th century model, folks, we all lived in a very small box. We were conditioned from the time we were in school to operate in that box, sit at the desk, do the job, regurgitate facts. And when we got to the workplace, we were very well prepared to do exactly that. And the 21st century model really stems around your network and building a network of relationships that allows you to play big, certainly far bigger than you were conditioned to do before. So if you want to be small, you do it the old way. If you want to look like you're just another person who works in a factory, and maybe an information factory or maybe an accounting factory, whatever kind of factory that you want to operate in, you can do that. But it's a waste. This is such a liberating technology if you play it that way. So we haven't really covered a lot of the profile yet, and we got to get a lot further here.
Yeah.
So I'm going to toss it to you. Where should we go here, Ron?
Well, after the summary, and once again, I give some specific recipes for the summary, taking advantage of all the 2,000 characters. And I like to kind of, I recommend that people tell a story. Use storytelling. The human brain's wired for storytelling, right? So if you tell a story about yourself, now don't get me wrong, not all people are creative writers, but you can tell a story about what you're great at. As I gave in the example, I love X. Here's what I'm good at. I use some of the assessment information. And then I also like to suggest from a professional standpoint, and a writing standpoint, is to use the PAR strategy. Now, some people don't know what the PAR strategy is, but it's a behavioral interviewing technique, and it's a problem, action, result. So in an professional interviewing environment, sometimes you'll go in and there may be a panel interview, or a one-on-one. And one of the questions that a professional interviewer may ask you is, hey, tell me about a problem that you've actually dealt with, and what action did you take and what results did you have? PAR, problem, action, result. So what they're looking for is to see how you think through a specific problem that has to do with their environment, which actions you took to resolve them, what type of critical thinker are you, and what results that you get from it, right? So in essence, can you solve problems in our environment based on these things that I'm going to tell you? Well, if a recruiter or a hiring manager or decision maker is looking at your profile, you can proactively stage a problem that has to do with your discipline. And I'm going to use desktop support engineer in this case. Let's say I'm a desktop support engineer. Well, the problem that I deal with on a regular basis is I support my internal customers with their tablets, their PCs, their desktops, etc. And on a regular basis, we have a changing environment. So the problem is that there's lots of issues on a regular basis. The actions that I take to support this clientele is I make sure that I give outstanding customer service, because I know it's frustrating when they deal with the technology and it's variable. We can have a sunspot or a solar flare, and all of a sudden everything's gone away. And the results I've had as a result of my service and my handling of my customers are this. So as you talk about yourself in your summary and your profile and in your job experience under the summary, what problems do you solve? What actions have you taken and results have you gotten for the job that you perform? If you use that strategy, you'll be speaking directly to the people that are hiring you, the language that they need to hear in order to feel good about interviewing you or going further, because they're looking for people to solve problems that they have, who take actions that are the effective actions, and who achieve results.
And I'll throw in one extra criteria on top of that. It makes it kind of Italian. It becomes Parm. And that is metrics that demonstrate the value of what you did in terms of money saved or money earned.
Love that. Love
Some professions.
that parm. I like that.
Thank you. It's the Italian way. So we've got the summary and we have a lot of the description talking with this model, either PAR or PARM, depending upon your profession. What else should people be doing to really create that image of themselves online?
So once again, just kind of recapping, we started off with a professional photo, talked about your professional headline and some strategies for making it easier to read using keywords, etc. Then we just got through talking about the summary where we've embedded some stories about yourself, what you're passionate about, assessments using the PAR strategy. And then your experience section is where we're going to go into. In your experience section, you can use PAR strategy or you can use the PARM strategy. Because I think and realistically in your experience section, if it's applicable, you certainly want to have metrics. I mean, as in the desktop support engineer or technician, what's your resolution? So you have a certain efficiency rating, or how regularly are you able to metrically measure how you resolve issues? And so 120% or 90% uptime or whatever the deal is. So in your experience section, bullet point. Oftentimes I see people writing lots of information in lots of long paragraphs. You got 10 to 15 seconds to gain our attention. Use bullet points. Copy and paste a bullet point into a Word document. You can do it and copy that into your LinkedIn document. LinkedIn doesn't have bullet points yet. I'm sure they will. But take a bullet point from some document, bullet point out your experience using the ARM strategy, and copy the bullet points into it. So you want to actually keep it very succinct and easy to read. Not a lot of verbiage. Most of us don't read, we peruse. So make sure your experience section includes the PARM strategy that's bullet pointed out so that we can go through it quickly. If I'm looking for someone who has efficiency in Microsoft or an A+ certificate, just make sure you're adding that type of information that's relevant. And another big piece on the experience section that you can roll into the overall profile is I'm a fan of taking job descriptions, running them through a word cloud generator. Word It Out is a great generator. You take 3 or 4 descriptions, stick it in Word It Out, and you make sure you take the dominant keywords, which are the larger keywords, and you place them in your profile as you're writing that profile. In addition to the key phrases, one key phrase in a job description may be looking for someone with excellent communication skills. Well, I can actually take that exact phrase without worrying about plagiarism, because one of the things as a support technician that I have is excellent communication skills. It's relevant to the job. And when they are looking at my profile based on the screening criteria, which is keyword based, I'm going to fit their criteria. A+ certification, I'm going to make sure I include that as well. The dominant keywords are all going to go into my LinkedIn profile. So now I'm going to be searchable based on keywords, which kind of creates a nice and neat package here as we talk about the entire profile experience as being keyword and key phrase searchable.
Would you embed your resume onto the profile so people can download it?
Absolutely, my friend. Absolutely. And in addition to that, using the word cloud strategy, and we can do that on another conversation, but I would also make sure that the resume that you embed on your profile has keywords and key phrases from the job descriptions embedded in it, because when they download your resume, they'll peruse it. They're also going to stick it into their applicant tracking system as well. So applicant tracking systems are great for monitoring candidates' progress, et cetera, but make sure that profile, or make sure that resume is optimized for keywords and key phrases, and that it mirrors your LinkedIn profile. It shouldn't be drastically different than your profile.
And I'll remind you folks, dates. The dates have to be congruent. I had an episode a week ago where there was a month or 2 off on someone's LinkedIn profile, different than his resume. Whichever one it was, he just didn't have it congruent. It caused the client to pause and go, I don't know about this guy. What else? What other kind of smoke are they blowing at us?
You know what, Jeff? That's a critical piece and congruency. And I know it's hard when you work in a number of documents. I mean, you're keeping all that stuff, but uh, the master puzzle is your online profile is now the basis of how people see you. So make sure any other document matches that profile. And if you do have a red flag come up, it's a little red flag, oftentimes for whatever reason, the brain is looking for other red flags. And so we want to make sure that we are congruent through and through.
You betcha. Links to PowerPoints, videos, anything along those lines.
Absolutely. So under your photograph and the professional headline, et cetera, and there's an area where you can actually embed. You can embed media. You can embed websites, a number of things. So I recommend, if appropriate, PowerPoints. You may be a graphic designer. You can upload images from some of your design, et cetera. Once again, taking the big picture of your personal brand, and LinkedIn is no longer just a resume, an online resume. When it first started off, we used it like that, but it's now the online representation 24/7 that we around the world, globally in 200 countries, 400 million plus users, are seeing how you stage your professional self before we ever read your resume. So the question now becomes is, if you're a graphic designer, what do you want me to see in the process of me making a decision before I even do anything else with you? So what do you want me to experience as part of your communication to me is the question you want to ask yourself. And the answer, let me give you the answer. It should be your professional version of when you go to see a client and you're closing a deal or a job description, or I'm sorry, a job interview. When you go see a client on a job interview, you want to look that part online. You want to look at that 24/7 so that there's no mistake about who you are and what your brand represents as we're looking at you. That way, when I look and go check, the dates are all match up, et cetera, now I feel comfortable about reaching out to you, because I'm going to do that before I reach out to you. If I don't feel comfortable with your brand online, I may not reach out. If the dates don't add up, I may not reach out. It's all it is it has to go check. And your online persona is now the new way that we're making decisions before we ever call you or ever look at your resume. So make sure your brand is in alignment.
So true. We don't have a lot of time left for today's show, Ron, and I'd love to have you back on. What last point should we cover today with regard to LinkedIn and branding that you think people should hear about now?
So I love the points you were covering in the tip section that you gave, and about connections, personal connections. Similarly, I'm approaching 17,000, and I've been working on new strategies. But I make sure that I post out to my network regularly. I do a number of things, but I think the etiquette of reciprocating. I make sure that when someone reaches out to me, that I reach back out to them, no matter what. It can be 3:00 in the morning, and I'm going to get back to you. So when someone in your network reaches out to you to ask you a question, I reciprocate. Now, don't get me wrong. There are people out there spamming, and that's a whole new set of rules. But when someone asks me to do something for a favor as a network, my first level connections, in the right spirit, I believe in reciprocation. So I think it's important that we maintain reciprocation as we build a network, which is truly the spirit of professional networking.
Amen, Ron. Thank you for making time today. How can people find out about you, the work that you do, the book? Ron Nash online.
You know what? And so, keeping it super simple, because what's happening now is LinkedIn is really, I've contemplated building websites, and I have a number of them. I'm doing several things, but what's really funny is LinkedIn's the new website. It's the new personal website. Find me on LinkedIn, Ron Nash on LinkedIn, or JSA Global on LinkedIn. You can look up JSA Global, Ron Nash. Just find me on LinkedIn, connect with me. I will accept your request to connect. And if you need anything, send me an email and just personalize the experience. I'm really about personalizing. Say you saw me on Jeff's show and you have a question for me, and I'll respond. I promise you.
And one thing, this is my new pet peeve. I write articles for the publishing platform on LinkedIn. It's like LinkedIn's version of a blog. You know how you're always told never to use the standard the standard message when you want to connect with someone? I get all these messages that say, "Great post." last article I did, 200 messages like this. And the mail system has a little corruption to it where you can't bulk delete. You have to manually, one at a time, delete right now. It is torture. So never use a template on LinkedIn. Always customize in some way to personalize the experience for the listener.
You know what? That's wisdom from the 20th century. So once again, final thought is the 20th century has a lot of wisdom. Writing personalized notes to interviewers, etc. Personalizing the experience shows that you're paying attention, that you really care about the communication versus a standard cookie cutter template. So yeah, and it sounds like people from an app just go, you're on the app and you go, great post. And while you may be paying attention, it's just all, to personalize the experience doesn't take much at all. So I highly recommend that.
Ron, thank you. And folks, I'll be back next time with more advice to help you find your next position. I'm Jeff Altman, the Big Game Hunter. My LinkedIn profile is linkedin.com/IN/the Big Game Hunter. And I'll accept connection requests from people worldwide as well. As long as you don't have one of those photos with the aquamarine background that kind of suggests that you're a spammer or scammer. And I'll also mention that if you're interested in coaching throughout your job search, you'll find out about that at my website. You can either schedule an individual session where I'll answer your questions, or I can coach you throughout the entire search. But there's information at thebiggamehunter.us that will help you tremendously. Hope you have a great day. Hope you enjoyed the show. And if you did, leave a 5-star review in iTunes, Stitcher, any other site that you use, because it'll help people discover the show. Have a great day. Take care.